Tony Hawk's Underground 2 might have a 2 right in it, but don't let that fool you. This is actually the 6th Tony Hawk game from Activision and longtime action sports masters Neversoft. One might think that taking up the task of creating a skateboarding game once a year for 6 years in the running would make for some fairly cookie-cutter-like gameplay. And you'd be right. Nevertheless, the formula has been tweaked a bit this year, making for some somewhat interesting new gameplay mechanics and a new style of story mode. These things combine to make a pretty great Tony Hawk game. One detail fans of the series will make immediate note of with this release: the story mode of the game revolves much more around the destructive Bam Margera than the game's namesake. The game basically pans out like a scavenger hunt episode of Viva La Bam, with two teams setting out on the World Destruction Tour. So this game is less about becoming the world's best skater, and more about just breaking stuff. You'll start out the story mode as your own created skater, but you'll also bring a pro teammate with you. Additionally, in each location you'll also find two other characters to skate as, from matadors to shrimp vendors, and even the father of electricity, Ben Franklin. The story mode's pretty short, however. If you're familiar with the Tony Hawk series, you should be able to get through the mode in around 6 or 7 hours. Thug 2 also features something called Classic Mode, which brings the game back to Tony Hawk 3, complete with 10 goals per level and the good old 2-minute run timer. Along with this is the inclusion of a number of classic levels, throwing all the way back to the school and downhill jam levels of the series' first outing. The Classic Mode is a cool addition, but considering that by the time you get to Classic Mode, you'll probably have already seen most of the new levels in their story mode form, this isn't as impressive as it could have been. Tossing in some more new levels would have been a big help. Thug 2 manages to include all of the gameplay established previously in the series, while building a few new elements on top of them. Sticker slaps allow you to continue a grind combo by bouncing off a wall, and vertical wall plants allow you to get a little extra air. When your special meter is full, you can enter focus mode, which puts the game into slow motion, giving you an extra edge at nailing your combos perfectly. Also new is the freak out function. After bailing a trick, you're occasionally invited to hammer on the grind button to make your skater freak out and break his or her board. After being tossed a fresh deck, he'll start out his next combo with a bonus of a couple thousand points. This just makes it take longer for you to get back on the board, and it would have been slightly more useful if there were more point-centric goals in the game, but as it is, they're pretty few and far between. The PC and PlayStation 2 versions of the game have the added benefit of online gameplay. You'll see most of the classic modes, Trick Attack, Slap, King of the Hill, and Combo Mambo, with new modes called Elimiscate and Scavenger Hunt. Elimiscate works like an eliminator match in a driving game. At regular intervals, the player with the lowest score gets axed from the competition. Scavenger Hunt works into 2 phases. In the first, each player drops 5 coins in hard-to-reach places. In the second, each player goes on a search for all of the coins, and the player with the most coins at the end is the winner. Each game can support up to 8 players online. The visuals in Thug 2 have taken on a slightly different look, with the models having a slightly exaggerated look to them. Not only does this make them seem more expressive, but also suits the over-the-top nature of the game's story mode. The visual quality varies pretty greatly between platforms. PlayStation 2 just doesn't look nearly as sharp as the others, with distant objects appearing blurry, and with an occasionally dicey frame rate to boot, especially in widescreen mode. PC version is probably the best looking out of the bunch, despite its appearance being marred by a few bugs, such as the haircuts of custom skaters kind of randomly disappearing. The audio in Thug 2 is great. The voice work, executed by the skaters themselves, is performed well, and even though the sounds of skating are mostly recycled, it still holds up quite well. The varied soundtrack is full of over 50 tracks from bands like Metallica, the DOC, Ween, Violent Femmes, and Audio 2. On top of that, there's a playlist editor to pick out what you like from what you don't. All in all, Tony Hawk's Underground 2 is a strong skateboarding game, though if you've remained devoted to the series, you might not be so impressed with its changes. The gameplay remains fast and fluid, and the story mode, though brief, is a satisfying romp for veterans as well as players new to the series. If you've been a fan of the Tony Hawk games for a long time now, you'll certainly have some good times with Thug 2, though you'll also probably come away feeling that Thug 2 is merely more of the same.